It's been a fun ride so far with the Lyrical Monasterio set, but Season 1 is about to end, or should I say Semester 1 is about to end, because after the reveals that we're going to discuss in this video, we're basically done with the first Lyrical Monasterio set. But before we go, we still got some very interesting and awesome cards to talk about. Stand up! Vanguard! Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we go once again over the card of the day reveals from the last week, and we're still in the midst of the Lyrical Monasterio season, or should I say at the end part of the Lyrical Monasterio season, because with these week's reveals done, we basically only have one rare left and a bunch of commons. But a large portion of those commons are just the triggers that have yet to be revealed. So not a lot of interesting things will come out of the woodworks after this video, or at least next week, because next week is also the week where we're going to see the rest of the cards, as the set will drop in Japan this Friday. So unless something interesting will happen, this will probably be the last video where I'm going to talk about Lyrical Monasterio. But with that said, let's jump straight into these cards, because we got 13 more cards to talk about that all bring something unique to the table. And we're going to start off with the generic cards, and one of those being a brand new Blitz order, which is called Vibrant Symphony. And it has the ability, if your Vanguard was hit this turn, choose one of your units that is being attacked, and it gets power plus 30k until the end of battle. This is honestly, in my opinion, a very good Blitz order. Like, 30k shield on a card is really good. This is in the same ballpark as the Critical Sentinel cards that we had in the V series, and that's a format where the power level is a bit higher than that's in Overdress. So this is going to be really good. And yes, you need to take 1 damage, but in most turns you will take at least 1 damage. So just taking a damage and then immediately being able to guard with this is actually pretty good. And then seeing this right on turn 2 that you can use this, you will probably have plenty of room to actually get value of this particular order. So I like this Blitz order actually quite a lot. Now, another generic card that we've got this time in actual unit is this great one, Enthusiastic for Lunch, Shentel, and her ability is act on Rigor Circle once a turn, cost counter plus 1. Until the end of turn, your Vanguard gets power plus 5k. This could potentially work in certain builds where we have Vanguards with a guard restrict, or maybe crit pressure, or something else that is attached to it. I don't think Lyrical has a restanding Vanguard, if I remember correctly, but maybe it gets that in the future. Overall, this could be useful, but again, it's counterblast for 5k power, so I don't like it necessarily. But it can work well if there's an actual extra payout on top of it, if the unit actually benefits from the extra power. Now, next up, we got a group of generic cards, but they are pretty good in the trial deck Estes size build, which basically is an archetype that works well with any generic card. So that's the reason why these cards also can work in any other Lyrical Monasterio deck. And you understand that once we take a look at this great one, which is Dreamy Eyes Emmeline. And Emmeline has the effect, continues a rearguard circle. If you have 3 or more other rearguards, this unit gets power plus 5k. It's a 7k base, so it becomes 12k, 12k booster attacker. It's fine. Overall, the restriction is a bit annoying because you need to have 4 rearguards in order to use this effect. But in something like the SS size build, where you're gonna bounce cards in multi-tech, having a card that actually gets a bit more power during the multi-tech part is nice to at least make those numbers matter. And again, it can work in any other deck. Now, interesting enough, she is part of a 2-card combo, because we also have this great free, Fulfilling Wishes Together Melia. And Melia has the effect auto. When placed on rearguard circle, cost counter plus 1, search for up to 1 Dreamy Eyes Emmeline, call to an open rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. Now, what's interesting here is that she's an 11k base, and together with Emmeline, they make a 23k column, which is honestly not that bad. But if we slap this in the bounce deck, this can actually achieve us 5 attacks, because if we bounce back the front row units and we call back the Melia to one of the sides, we can use her effect to call the Emmeline from deck to the other side and call another new booster from the Vanguard ability itself, where you can call 2 new units to the field. So that's a great way to just suddenly repopulate the board out of nowhere if you can set up the field correctly for it. Now, another new great free that we saw is Powerful Dash Andorra, which has the effect auto when this unit is placed in a rearguard circle from hand, cost counter plus 2, until the end of turn, this unit gets critical plus 1. It's a 10k base. Overall, I'm not too excited about this card because it's counter plus 2 for critical. I don't really like that value. Maybe it can work with the multi-tech deck, but I don't really see a lot of potential in it, even though other archetypes can restand her. But maybe it can work, but I'm not too optimistic about it. Now, a card that actually does have some potential is Clearly Worded Floor, which has the effect auto. When placed on the rearguard circle from hand, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a unit card that's not a grade 2, call to an open rearguard circle. If you did not call, put it on the bottom of your deck. So this is yet another card that gives you a free plus, which you can just use in any build, or it's another card that allows you to get that multi-attack off with the Esthetize bounce deck, because it allows you to call another card to the other open front or rearguard circle. So this is more consistency for the potential 5 attack strategy for that trial deck build. And then the final card within this group of cards is this grade 3 Midnight Lesson Vanu, and she has the effect, although when this unit is placed on the rearguard circle, cost Counterblast 2, look at the top 5 cards from your deck, choose up to 2 trigger units, call them to an open rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. Again, it allows us to multi-attack, but this one I'm not too keen about because it removes 2 triggers from your deck and they need to be in top 5. So it's kind of awkward, might not always get you the value, and Counterblast 2 is pretty big. Now I can understand the value that's to be had here with the trial deck build, because you can bounce back those triggers back to hand, thus giving you that shield value. But is that worth the fact that you removing them from your deck? I'm not so sure. And then besides that, I don't really see any actual applications in any of the other ride lines. So this might be a bit tricky, or at least you could say a wasted card. But who knows, maybe there's something there that I'm not seeing and that you guys actually can find out. Now, with the generic cards out of the way, we also got some more archetype specific support. And we got 2 new cards for the Black Wings, White Wings deck. But in this case, particularly the Black Wings side of things, because we got this double R grade 2 Longing for Dreams Barrel. And Barrel has the effect Black Wings auto when placed on the rearguard circle. Cost Soul Blast 3. For every 2 of your even grade rearguards, choose one of your opponent's units, and until the end of turn, the chosen units get power minus 5k. Then your opponent puts all of their power 0 rearguards on the bottom of the deck in any order. You cannot choose the same unit twice, Philip. But this aside, you might ask yourself, wait, how does this work? Because most units are like 8 or 10k, so how are you getting to 0 power? Basically, if you have Black Wings active on your grade 3 Vanguard, you're already going to put their front row to minus 5k power. So any grade 2 unit is 5k. So if you resolve this skill and you have 6 even number units in the field, so either all grade 2s or maybe triggers in the back row, then you can put those same units to another minus 5k power, thus retiring their grade 2s and putting their Vanguard potentially at 0 if they're grade 2 or at 3k if they're just a grade 3. Which is pretty damn annoying. And you can definitely generate the soul for the skill because we already have inherent soul building. But we have another card that also fuels this card. So overall, I really like the skill. It does need some setup, but it can definitely be a very strong field control aspect, which also pressures your opponent because you start swinging against a minus 10k Vanguard, which is effectively giving your entire front row a front trigger, which is always pretty good. Now, the card I was talking about that can also fuel this card is another grade 2, which is Howling Ballet Vanuel, which has the effect Black Wings, auto. When this unit is placed on the rearguard circle, Soul Charge 1, and this unit gets boost until the end of turn. This is a skill the Black Wings variant of the deck really needs, because A, you're going to need the soul if you're going to rely on the other grade 2, but more importantly, it gives boost. And as soon as you want to use all your grade 2s or mainly want to rely on even numbered units, you want to have some of your grade 2s being able to boost so you don't have to call your triggers to the back row to put some more numbers on your attacks. So this is a great card to actually fuel that. And I believe there is some bouncing in the Black Wings, White Wings deck, so you could potentially just bounce it back to your hand and call to the field. I could be wrong, but I thought they had one card that does this. Now, besides the Black Wings, White Wings, we also got a pseudo generic card, but it's a ghost unit, so it can work with Felty Rosa. And that ghost being this grade 1, Fleeting Maiden Hanerore. And Hanerore has the effect on a rearguard circle. When your other unit is placed in the same column as this unit, until the end of turn, this unit gets power plus 2k. It's basically the 10k booster, but also not necessarily, because it can be bigger. Because if you have her on the rearguard circle and you call something in front of it, it becomes 10k. But if we have, for example, the starter deck or the trial deck build, or Felty Rosa herself, which allows you to call new units, you can give her more power because it will stack. It's not a once per turn, or it's not a continuous effect. So she can be potentially 12k or maybe 14k depending on how the deck works. Now overall, it's not the most amazing type of ghost card for Felty Rosa, but if we need to run more grade 1s to increase the consistency, at least we have this. Sadly, she doesn't trigger on her own, which can sometimes be awkward, but we have to make do here. Now, the final archetype that got support is the brand new, or I should say the latest archetype that got released, which is the Earnest Correct build, the Dragon Mage variant. And one of those new cards being this grade 1 Solid Step Peccoli. And Peccoli has the effect, continues a rearguard circle. During your turn, if you have a rearguard with Earnest Correct in its card name, this unit gets power plus 2k. It's the 10k booster. We can basically move on because this is just generic and doesn't really change anything. We might see it, we might not see it in the deck that it actually is supposed to be played in. Now, a card that might actually be very useful is this grade 2 Best Friends Eluda, which has the effect, although when put on the Guardian Circle, choose up to one of your rearguards with Earnest Correct in its card name, return it to your hand. So this is more field protection because you need those cards within this deck to actually make it work. So if you're up against retired decks, it can be a bit tricky to keep your field presence on at an all-time high. And if most of their things happen during the battle phase, you can use this card preemptively to get at least some cards back into your hand that you need. But more importantly, this also combos really nicely with the grade 2 with the Unplace effect, which allows you to search out any of your other Earnest Correct cards, which means you can load up double time on one copy of that grade 2 and getting more value out of your entire engine and also making the deck more consistent. So I like this card a lot. It has different applications and I think this is going to be almost an auto include in any of the Earnest Correct builds. And then finally we got a grade 3, which interestingly enough might be a card that can be run in the trial deck variant as well as in Felty Rosa. Because we got this grade 3 strong and adorable Rila. And her effect is auto rearguard circle. At the end of the battle it attacked, cost, counter plus 1, put the unit on the bottom of your deck, draw 1, choose one of your units with Earnest Correct in its card name, and it gets power plus 5 until the end of turn. Now, this is just more consistency for the Earnest Correct deck because it allows you to draw into your cards and give some power to the field. Now, the awkward thing here is that it needs to attack, which means one of your grade 2's Earnest Corrects isn't going to attack. Now, we have the grade 2 that just has the Unplace effect, so we can move it to the back row and it doesn't really matter, and we can just rely on this, which is fine. But what I like about this card is the fact that her first part of the skill doesn't require any archetype name to make it work. You can just use her as an attacker that then for one counterblast can put herself on the bottom of the deck to draw a card. So it just cycles itself. And that can then work really nicely with the trial deck variant because that allows you to clear the board from units, which then can be used to superior call more cards to the field, thus increasing the consistency of actually hitting that 5 attacks. And you might be able to run one of the Earnest Correct cards in that deck as well, as you can use it as an engine, which can get the power increase. But this also works nicely with Felty Rosa, as once again it can open up the field, draw some more cards, and you get some more things going here. Now, granted, with Felty Rosa it might be a bit tricky because she's not a ghost, but it's things that you can think about to potentially fuel some other plays. Overall, the reveals are pretty interesting. Like, we got a lot of just generic support, but we see a lot of specific support cases where they either give us more consistency for a certain place, like with the starter deck build, which is definitely looking to be way more consistent in achieving 5 attacks. The base numbers are a bit awkward, but I think that's the thing about that particular playstyle. But we see also new directions for the Black Wings White Wings deck. We see new options for the latest reveal for the Earnest Correct build, as well as the final pieces for the other variants. Now, we still have a lot of commons left and then one rare. Maybe we see some more support for Lorna Roll. Maybe we see the last things for Felty Rosa herself. There could be even more Earnest Correct support being thrown at us at the last moment. So who knows? Maybe there will be something more. But right now, I think this is probably it. We can have a pretty good guess and understanding of how strong these decks are going to be straight out of Lyrical Monasterio. And overall, the average is looking pretty good. Like, the power is pretty good. It's not too strong. It doesn't feel like it's power creeping the already existing right lines. But it's also not that much weaker than what we already saw. Like, probably the weakest of them all is going to be the gem build. Although she is pretty mediocre right now, I do see a lot of potential in her design. Because what she has, what none of the other decks has, and basically none of the other overdressed deck has, is draw power. Her sheer draw power is insane. The only thing she needs is a payout, and once that payout would come, maybe in one of the random commons we're gonna get in this set, or in the next Lyrical Monasterio support wave, then suddenly she could flip like that and be insane. Because a consistent draw engine like that would always be very deadly, because if there's some type of 2-card, 3-card combo that could win you the game, she's probably the deck that gets the fastest to that, which makes her the most consistent in doing that. So don't write her off just yet. But that said, I am very curious of what you guys think of these new reveals. So let me know in the comments down below if you're excited about any of these cards we talked about today. Are you excited for a specific ride line now that we know all the reveals basically and we have a better guess on their power level? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely Patreons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!